We are up to episode 4 in the Amazon series, The Rings of Power. And let me tell you, it does not get better. Hi everyone, my name is Jacob Berry. Welcome to the StudioJake vidcast where I talk about all things pop culture. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. Don't forget to ring that little bell so you get notifications when I post a new vidcast, and consider becoming a channel member. Alright, like I said at the outset, we are at episode 4 in the Amazon series, The Rings of Power, which claims it is an adaptation of the Silmarillion. It is not. I'm going to dive right into it. And so if I'm looking down, I promise I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just trying to keep up with my notes because there were a lot. And I'm going to do an episode breakdown like I did for season 1. So here we go. So there's still a lot of tension going on between Galadriel and Elrond. She's all angsty because she got demoted and Elrond got promoted in her place. He's still angry at her because he still thinks the rings are evil, and she kind of throws a little bit of a hissy fit as they're off to go see Celebrimbor, who oddly was absent from this episode. They're heading to him, but the bridge they have to cross that would shorten it was destroyed. And what's kind of funny is Elrond kind of examines the bridge, and he's like, it looks like lightning did this. And then she replies, Galadriel replies, no earthly thing did this. Yeah, he just said it was lightning, chick. Oh my gosh. She was like, this is Sauron. It probably was Sauron, but still, that's so funny. It's like, he didn't say it was earth. He said it was lightning, which comes from the sky. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so one of their little elf people that's with them says, hey, maybe we could go north, but that'll take 2 weeks. Let's go through south, but it goes through an evil forest, and the ring kind of warns Galadriel, so she throws another hissy fit about it, and Elrond is like, we're going anyway. Good for Elrond. I'm glad they're giving him a backbone in this particular episode, because he's been nothing but Galadriel's whipping boy this whole series, from season 1 and the first 3 episodes of season 2. Here he's actually developed a spine seemingly out of nowhere, and he puts her in her place and says, hey, if you don't like it, go home. And so she shuts up finally and goes along. So then we find the not Gandalf stranger. He finally is out of the desert. He's looking for Nori and the other one, Poppy. He's looking for Nori and Poppy. They're missing ever since he caused the sandstorm to get rid of the Dark Wizard's henchman in episode 3. And he runs into Tom Bombadil, who's wearing a dress for some reason. And they kind of have like this exchange, and the stranger finds a limb that he saw in a dream, and he's thinking he can use this for his wizard staff, but then the tree eats him. Now we go to the not hobbits, Nori and Poppy, and they're lost. They're wandering around, and they run into some person who looks like a Harfoot, the not hobbits, and he has just stolen water, and he's kind of hesitant to help them, but Poppy gives him googly eyes, and so he leads them to his village that's in the canyon, and they find more not hobbits, and they get into an argument with the village elder, I guess, and they end up getting arrested. So we go to where the Dark Wizard is, and the henchman is all throwing a fit, and he wants revenge on the stranger because of the sandstorm, because I guess it killed 2 of his henchmen. The Dark Wizard is kind of angry, but then is like, you just focus on the not hobbits, I'll focus on the not Gandalf. The stranger, not Gandalf, is still stuck in the tree. Bombadil comes and does a rhyme, which is actually a rhyme from the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, which was left out of the Peter Jackson trilogy, where he gets the stranger out of the tree and tells him, hey, you weren't able to do this because you're not ready to fully accept, and we see accept your power, and then for some reason we see the strangers taking a bath, and they have another conversation. Oh my gosh, this is wokeness to the core. We have to have a conversation about having the conversation, because they're not good writers, so they don't know how to, through subtext and through imagery, tell the story. So we have to have so much freaking dialogue. That's why this episode was an hour long. There is so much freaking talking. Tom randomly has a pet lamb. They have a Goldberry reference. Goldberry is, of course, wife, and for some reason Tom Bombadil gaslights the stranger and says, you didn't hear a woman talking. I don't know why he does that in the books. He doesn't do that. In the books, he's more like a free spirit. In fact, the ring, Sauron's ring, the One Ring, it doesn't affect him. He puts it on, and in most cases, when you put on the Ring of Power, it makes you go invisible, and you can hear its voice, the voice that Sauron put into it, talking and whispering, and it doesn't affect Tom at all. In fact, in the Council of Elrond, another scene left out of the Peter Jackson trilogy, Elrond and Gandalf, the real Gandalf, the real Elrond, have a conversation about giving the One Ring to Tom Bombadil, but they were worried that because he's such a free spirit, he might accidentally leave it somewhere where Sauron's forces can find it. They ultimately don't give it to him, in other words. So anyway, back to not Gandalf and not Tom Bombadil. He says that Bombadil says he has to earn his staff, and tells him that his destiny is to defeat, not attack, I guess, but to defeat both the Dark Wizard and Sauron. So then we go back to Elrond and Galadriel. They find this graveyard and they fight the ghost pirates from Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm actually a little surprised because Galadriel almost gets killed by one of these things. And again, they let Elrond save her. And I'm just genuinely surprised by this because Elrond has been nothing but Galadriel's whipping boy this whole show. But here, they're letting him have a chance to shine. He even figures out how to defeat the ghost pirates. They're not really ghost pirates. They're dead kings, I guess. But still, they look very similar to how the original cursed pirates from Pirates of the Caribbean look, just how they did it, just a little darker. We go back to Isildur, who's still hanging out at the Númenórean harbor that's been abandoned, and now the people of the south have taken it over. They're looking for Theo for some reason. I was genuinely hoping that Theo had been killed off. Again, worst character in the whole show. He's annoying. He's a brat. He's self-righteous. He caused the creation of Mordor. He should just be executed, quite frankly. I don't even know why he's a character anymore. His mom's been killed off. She wasn't even really that important in season 1 either, other than to just give the buzzcut elf guy a love interest. Anyway, they're searching for him. They find a corpse that has been chopped up, and they think that the wild men have done it. And so Isildur, who should be trying to get back to Númenor, is hanging out because he has this crush on this homeless woman who actually find out she's a spy for the wild men. And Arondir, who is the buzzcut elf, he sees the scar on the back of her neck where she tried to cover up her mark, her wildman mark. And he forces her to take them to the wildman camp where they think Theo is. Now, I don't know why, but it ends up just being Buzzcut Elf and Isildur. They wander off with her. They get eaten by a giant snake suddenly, and they cut themselves out, and the homeless woman does something to save them. But I'm like, wait a minute. You expect me to believe, because Isildur was sinking slowly, and so I'm assuming it's going to be kind of like an alligator thing where, alligators pull you under and then they do this and chop you up and eat you, right? But that's not what happens. This giant snake thing swallows them whole, and so Buzzcut Elf cuts them out and then makes them dinner with the meat. They have kind of a side flash where you see that Theo has been taken by Ents. If you're thinking I'm just saying this randomly, like how I described the 5 story arcs when I talked about the first 3 episodes, no, this is literally how this episode is edited. There's so much going on in the show. It's ridiculous. So we go back to the not hobbits, Dory and Poppy. They're still in jail, and they somehow convince the village elders that Harfoots are related to them by some quote, or no, they name a person, I think. So then the village elder takes them to like this cave drawing, and they realize that they are in fact the same. It's just this branch off Harfoots. They've just called themselves something different because it's been so long since they've been reunited. Well, then the Dark Wizard's thugs show up to the village and are demanding that they turn over the not hobbits, and that conversation is very, very short. That's shocking because every conversation in the show so far has been way too long. And they're like, hey, we want those halflings. We'll be back to get them. And they slap the village elder around a little bit. So then we go back to Elrond and Galadriel, where we have another conversation. Oh my gosh, does anything happen in this show without having dialogue? So they're having another conversation about, guess what? The rings. Not, hey, how are you doing? Hey, why don't we hang out? Hey, why don't we resolve the conflict with us? No, it's about the rings again. Galadriel basically says, whatever happens, just make sure that Sauron is defeated. And Elrond assures her that, oh yeah, I'll at least do that. So we go back to Buzzcut Elf, Isildur, and the homeless wild woman, and they're having a nice fireside chat. Oh, and thank you for saving us. But then the wild woman steals Isildur's sword because, he's a wussy in this show, but they are actually saved by an Ent, and the elves and the Ents, or the elf and the Ents, have this long conversation again about what forgiveness is, and they're all mad at the orcs. And so somehow Buzzcut Elf convinces them to let the hostages go. So the Ents do, in fact, free everyone. But then for some reason, the Ent heals the homeless wild woman. And you find out that one of the hostages was her beloved. So I thought she was lying about having a boyfriend. Turns out she wasn't. Isildur, of course, is angry. But, oh, brother. So Theo is still alive. I was hoping the Ents had eaten him, but no, of course not. So then Theo and Arondir kind of make up. Oh, very touching scene. Oh, another conversation. They have another conversation about having a conversation, and Arondir says he's going to leave because he either has to go back with his kind, but he also wants to confront the Uruk. We go and we see these orcs are marching through the forest, and Elrond and his men kind of stumble on them, and Galadriel says, hey, I'll create a distraction and just make sure that the ring gets to Celebrimbor. And Elrond takes it, and I'm like, wait, what is the shift suddenly? Because before, Elrond was like, I don't want to touch it. I don't want anything to do with it. It's evil. Sauron touched it. I want nothing, no part of this. Well, now she's like, I'll distract them. Here you go. And he's like, okay. And so then he takes the rest of the elves off. They're going to keep going to Celebrimbor, and Galadriel creates a distraction where, of course, she has her, boss babe moment where she's kicking all kinds of orc butt. And she gets captured, though, because Adar himself is there marching with his orcs because, he has to do that because orcs are people too. And so, yeah, that's the gist of this episode. So like episode 3, my main problem with episode 4 is it's so freaking boring. Why is there so much talking in this show? It's like, shut the frick up. Let's just go. Let's have fun. This is Lord of the Rings. It's fantasy. It's high fantasy. It has high concepts. It has important themes. But no, we have to have a conversation about having a conversation about having a conversation next week. That because these writers are lazy, they're creatively bankrupt. They can only copy, they can't even adapt. And so as a result, you have this mishmash of scenes that are just incredibly boring. It takes the show nowhere. Nothing happened outside of introducing more characters to an already filled up show. It's ridiculous. It's silly. It's quite frankly embarrassing that they are so creatively bankrupt. The only way for them to move the story along is to have conversations about having conversations. That's what it is. Why is there so much talking in this show? Let's see some action. Let's see some adventure. Let's see some fantasy, for crying out loud. But no, we have to have conversations about having conversations and just introducing more characters to have more conversations with. It's ridiculous. And you can tell that these people know nothing about Tom Bombadil. They didn't read The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. They didn't read his scenes in Lord of the Rings. They didn't read about him in the appendices. They just were like, hey, let's just have this goofy character who can have a little bit of humor in this. Gone. And by the way, we don't even know what Celebrimbor or the dwarves are doing. They weren't even in this episode, which I'm kind of glad because it was so bloated with the bloated cast. It would have been even more confusing. So yeah, there it is. That's episode 4 of The Rings of Power from Amazon, proving once again it's not really an adaptation of Lord of the Rings or the Silmarillion. It's just bad fan fiction. If you liked that episode, be sure to give it a thumbs up, share it out to all your friends, leave me a comment to what you think, and subscribe. If you're listening on YouTube, ring that little bell so you get notifications whenever a new video goes up, and consider becoming a channel member. If you don't want to support me on Big Tech, click on the link to my locals community. It's in the description of the video. It really helps out small indie creators like myself. Or you can purchase one or more of my books on Amazon. You can check them out. I've got all 4 of them right here. This is my newest one, Blessed Child. Definitely check it out. It is way better in most people's opinion, than the Rings of Power. That I can assure you. And don't worry, nothing woke in any of them. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.